Welcome to our discussion all about corporate veil under company law. Before we go on discussing corporate veil, we have to go through the topic of separate legal personality. So when you talk about separate legal personality, the law recognizes an entity to be a legal person. So meaning they have the legal rights and obligations separate from those who are running and or owning the business or the entity. So in case of a company, the company will be treated as a separate legal entity distinct from the shareholders. When you talk about corporate veil, it's a concept where it separates the action of an organization to the actions of the shareholders. Okay, it protects on certain degree the owners or the shareholders with regards to any actions against the company. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always in place. There are chances where the corporate veil can be lifted or can be pierced, and that will be decided by the court. Piercing corporate veil refers to the circumstance in which the court has set aside limited liability and hold the company's investors or directors personally liable for the organization's activities or debt. Corporate veil piercing is common in closed corporations because closed corporations are the information most of the time are private and the public are not able to see it at any time. So meaning if they lifted or pierced the corporate veil, that will be the time where the third party can know who owns the company or can make the owners liable directly. So while the laws vary from state to state, courts will generally abstain from piercing the corporate veil unless there have been signs of serious misconduct. So it's not automatic when you ask for lifting of corporate veil that they will actually or the court will grant you automatically. So there must be a serious misconduct first or sign of serious misconduct so that the court will allow the corporate veil to be lifted. A popular case law, Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited. Two major points here. It says, can unsecured creditors claim unpaid portion of the loan against the owner? And the second bullet here, regardless of separate legal identity of the company, can a shareholder or controller will be liable to pay unpaid portion of company debts? Now, the major points on decision. The first instance, Court of Appeal declared the company as a myth. So meaning the company is becoming an agent or just a representative of the owner. So in the first bullet, the view is that company is just a vehicle of the owner to do something that he or she wants to do. But the House of Lords, upon appeal, reversed the above ruling. It says incorporated entity has separate legal personality, so which means distinction between the owner and the company, and it actually created a firm stand on corporate veil. Another interesting case will be Catherine Lee versus Lee's Air Farming Limited. So the appellant's husband was the major shareholder, the director, and one of the employees of Air Farming Limited. Mr. Lee's insurance was paid through the company's book. And Mr. Lee died during the aerial dressing, so meaning died during his work or doing his work. The wife is claiming worker compensation under New Zealand Workers' Compensation Act 1922. New Zealand Court of Appeal denied the claim, stating that a man cannot employ himself. So if you go through these bullet points, it talks about that the company and the owner is just the same. And you can see that the majority shareholding is owned by or was owned by Mr. Lee. So the decision, a shareholder can have contract with company he owned as a company is a separate legal entity. So which means the shareholder can be a director and also can be an employee of the company. Cases to pierce the corporate veil. The first bullet point that we can see here is fraud and improper conduct. So in this case, the company is being used as a mere cloak or the company is a sham. The second bullet point here is agency. Subsidiary company acts as an agent of the parent company, then that will be the time the corporate veil will be lifted or pierced. And then third bullet here it says avoiding legal obligation. If the company is trying to hide or avoid legal obligation, then the corporate veil will be lifted and the owners can be exposed. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much for your time.